Good morning, friends. So, I've been going to OSCON because I was a proposal reader. I'll also get to look at a lot of the sessions and so on video. So today, having it's typical at OSCON if people go to parties and stuff, they don't always go to the early morning keynotes. Now, I haven't gone to any parties, but I did want to hang out with my house guest, and I left yesterday towards the end of the evening, and today I find myself, there's my phone. Today I feel myself diving into studying electrical stuff for some reason. I'm reading this, or I'm following this amazing guy on YouTube. You're going to think, uh oh, he's going down a rabbit hole, but this guy's very interesting, isn't he? I'd be interested in others' opinions on that. I'll show you what I'm talking about as that loads. Oh, today's Thursday, so the question is, would I go to El Mercado? Maybe so, if I'm not going to OSCON. So I'm studying electrical grids. You've got my YouTube history. Hey, that's a great way to get there to show you what I'm into. And this relates to my second Medium article that I wrote yesterday about how I was pleased to go to that talk on the California fires and how they were a result of grid failures. Because to me, talking about the electrical grid in a generic sense, the whole world's grid, but also individual grids, the North American grids, all the grids, that's what Fuller was aiming to educate our discourse up to where we could talk about that in kind of a sane adult manner. And that doesn't mean you have to master all of electrical theory, but I do feel like that's a big hole in my knowledge, and I know a lot about computers already. So instead of going to OSCON, I'm diving down a rabbit hole relating to grids, which we'll see in the rearview mirror. Was that a good use of my time? But like I say, I can watch these OSCON talks on video, and you know, the networking opportunities are what I'm missing at the moment. But I did hang out yesterday with one of the PyCon, or yeah, a star Python teacher, and he showed me some little circuit devices, some gizmos that are Python powered that look pretty interesting. So I have benefited from networking, and I caught up with an old friend from the Plone days when I used to work on. I didn't work very deeply in it, but this Python project called Plone, just to give you some of my history. I'm scrolling through my writing on the world grid that I came up with last night, and I also came up with another story where I talk about the opening keynote in particular. Um, Yesterday, we had a fire alarm go off right after that keynote, so they were hoping it was a false alarm and we wouldn't have to all get up and leave the building, but no such luck. So we did all get up and leave the building. Some of the proprietors across the street were like, "Why are you standing in my parking lot? I'm trying to do business here." So we were like moving from place to place, but it was over pretty quick. And anyway, they started early this morning to catch up. Another reason I decided I'll just study here for now. So, Back from the Future is my other Medium essay. And here I'm continuing with my, as you've heard me, if you've watched on other YouTubes, I show up with wild hair. At one point, I thought that looked like Doctor Who, but really what I was thinking of was that guy in Back to the Future. But Back from the Future is a useful thing to think. Not that I believe in time travel in any conventional sense, or that I'm, I'm into science fiction though, and I think when we come to our present time, we want to think from the future and see how we are making wise or not wise choices going forward. The theme of the movie 12 Monkeys is that way too. But we already know in that movie that things didn't turn out, and the guy they send back to our time is here to figure out what happened, that everything got so bad. So the opening keynote, Tiffany Ashley Bell, she discovered how in Detroit and everywhere else you just basically get cut off if you don't have the funds to pay your water bill. Doesn't matter how old or frail you might be or what your story is, you're basically just cut off. And she was very disturbed by that and threw together an application at first to just help people who want to step in and pay other people's water bills. So it all relies on the goodwill of private citizens. There's no change in government policy. There's no right to water. That got me researching the UN Declaration of Human Rights and stuff while I was sitting there in the auditorium and blogging, trying to figure out some history there. But it was all feeding. She told us we should do apps like this. We should have a social conscience. And she used the term concentration camp, like, let's not be on the side of people who are creating those. And I thought she was brave to even bring that up, given the rhetoric out there in this day and age. And I was also clued by my house guest about this guy in Tacoma who basically took his own life by committing property damage or trying to against some buses that are used to bus Americans to these camps, these detention centers, which I agree that's been going on. I'm not saying that the slow creep of what Walter Kaufman warned us could happen did not start all that recently. As you know from my writing, I don't see it that way. It's been a long, slowish process. So I link in Triumph of the Will because there's another story that we can learn from in this regard. And this is a useful essay, perhaps. But it's also maybe explains how I didn't want to go to OSCON again today, because it's somewhat psychically hard to be there. Not because I'm judging, but just the feeling of what are we going to do now? Like, we're in a difficult time right now. And I picked up what optimism and hope for the future I could from going to the talks, and I realized a lot has gone into the blockchain idea, which I knew, but I wanted to hear current snapshot of that. So in this essay, if you go read it on Medium, you'll find that I mix the blockchain also with Git, because in Git, it's kind of like a blockchain. We have transactions, and they're somewhat cryptographically tied together, but not with the same intent in mind, because the whole point of Git is you can roll back and revert and go forward on a different branch. If you explore a branch and it's a dead end and you want to go back and revert and go forward on another branch, that's what Git is all about. And I use that as kind of a metaphor for how I think we need to get back to like World Game, and all humans are on the same side, and this is not a big contest between civilizations, but rather an opportunity to harness all the best of all of our thinking together and think our way in a thoughtful manner towards a better future. I think that's rhetoric a lot of us would have no trouble with. But putting it into geek terms, I thought, the blockchain does offer the security of providing consensus in a hurry compared to how slowly historical narratives are developed. Like when we try to figure out history, which is transactions, it takes a long time and there's no agreement. Narratives are clashing, and the whole thing is like warring narratives, whereas the blockchain is about resolution, hammering out the past and having it be immutable. And then Git is about going back and taking forks not taken, forks in the road not taken, and going forward on a different fork, exploring a different branch. So I merged those two ideas in this essay, which is a way I hope of including what I'm calling OSCON culture in the sort of world game initiative that I'm thinking about. And again, the fact that World Game was so much about electrical grids, and the fact that we're talking deeply about electrical grids at this conference felt quite appropriate to me. So that's why I wrote the two essays, one about electrical grids and one about let's revert and explore a road not taken. And now I'm here studying electricity, but through the eyes of someone that I said you might find, uh-oh, he's going down that rabbit hole. But, you know, this guy, Eric Dollard. So you see that I've been watching some of his videos here, my video history. Very interesting guy, but it's also kind of bleak to watch because all these great people to whom, in retrospect, we attribute our civilization, like Tesla and Oliver Heaviside. I didn't know what a pariah Heaviside became and how he was forbidden to write, and how, you know, I knew about Tesla, but this just drummed it home again. We don't treat these people well, including Dollard here. And that brings me back to Fuller's education automation and candidate Yang's idea of a UBI. And it's like a lot of people really want to do research. In fact, that's how they hope. A lot of people want to be YouTube personalities based on the research that they do. And the thing about the blockchain is it's grassroots hopes that people can get out from under these big, heavy, slow-moving systems we've been saddled with that actually don't mind if they kill us. Kind of not really interested in our health or livelihoods. And can we reorganize and pay each other to do what we think needs doing, like getting plastic out of the ocean and alleviating poverty and getting people water and all that kind of stuff. So the legacy systems are letting us down at this point, especially if we don't create any new ones. And the grid, the California grid, how it is now, is another example of something we inherit but can't just we can't just sit back and take advantage of something that's there for us. We can't take it for granted. We have to go forward to the next level. And in general, I think going forward to the next level means giving a lot more people time to pause and reflect and get off the treadmill and do research. We need to use our brains for what they're good at, which is finding patterns and so on. So in a general sense, that whole idea of a free education, quote unquote, it's more like a thinking lifestyle where as part of your education, you're engaged in projects such as Asylum City, as I call it. I know that sounds wrong to some people. Asylum has that mental idea of mental hospital, but yes, we are kind of a mental hospital, this planet, and a lot of people do need to get off the streets and get into a more caring context. And I live in a place called the Asylum District informally, but it's been branded that way, and actually it's kind of hyped. I had something to do with that, I like to think. But it was Dr. Hawthorne. Our main street here is Hawthorne Boulevard, and he ran the first mental hospital in the state of Oregon. So it all ties together on my end in terms of memes. But I'm just saying, if we go with UBI, free education, all this stuff they're calling socialism for some reason, I think it's really investing in our capacity as thinkers, needing to do work that we agree needs to be done, and not just in order to put food on the table, but to help humanity in a way we can understand, because we're all getting the big picture now more than before. So people want, quote, meaningful lives. And we can't blame them for that, because if you just do meaningless stuff, then you descend into um, an unsustainable state. It's like taking the wrong branch on Git. Okay, I think I've said enough. Talk to you soon.